All right, what is going on, everybody? Rogers Base here, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Japan Time Spoilercast. This week, we're going to be going over XENOBLADE Chronicles 3. This is a game that everybody in call has beaten. We are going to talk full spoilers, so if you are not heeding Ricky's warning from the beginning of this episode, make sure to X out right now, because you will be spoiled on XENOBLADE 3. Joining me, we've got Fidel.
Yes, sir. Finally, we're here. XENOBLADE 3. First time like a XENOBLADE game's out, we can all discuss together.
Yes,
so it's
sir.
gonna be great.
We got McDareth.
What's up, everyone? I finally finished this game like last week after 170 hours. I was hunting for any crumb of content. Game was amazing. I'll get back to it more.
No worries. Coast?
XENOBLADE 2 is an undisputed GOAT game for the next 3 decades.
All right, we'll see about that.
2?
Vera?
Good day, everybody. I'm alive. I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just a little bit delayed on the response, but I am here, and I very much like this game.
Right on. And finally, Zeph.
Hello. I don't have anything to say right now, but hello.
No worries. And last but not least, for this very first episode of the Spoilercast, we also have a special guest. We've got Chris joining us as well this week. Welcome, Chris.
I really don't know if I honestly expected to be here upon the announcement of XENOBLADE Chronicles 3, but I'm happy to be here now.
That's actually the big surprise for me as well. I didn't know you were going to be on this, and knowing how you felt about the previous game, I was surprised you wanted to join us. But I think this will be a lot of fun. So I guess first thing I want to ask everybody, just general impressions. Anyone can speak. How did you feel about XENOBLADE Chronicles 3 as a whole?
I will say I adored it. And I think a big part of it this time around is, even though, it had that larger, story theme where it gets into, like gods and all this stuff, I think the core story hit very personally to like reality. Because I feel like that's a big thing. Like the other Xenoblade games, I like the stories and characters, but this one felt very personal with, like the endless now and wanting to be, wanting to do the things you love forever, but you know
what the word is that I think that perfectly describes what you're saying is that I feel the third Xenoblade out of the rest is more grounded in terms of characters, plot, and all that compared to the others. And I'm on the same boat with you where I feel I was way more connected and drawn into the game and felt way more emotional when it ended up concluding. Except it did kind of go off the rails a little bit, but yeah, I think it's definitely way more grounded.
Yeah, because I think like it is a very typical JRPG thing where the ending gets into some god fight, but for the most part, I really do think even though it was a big story, it felt very personal. It felt very character driven, and that's why like especially the ending hit extremely hard because you don't even realize that what the characters are trying to stop is something that they don't even want by the end of it. So yeah,
I think that there was the one thing that I like walking into it realized like off rip with the introduction of 3 and then 6 characters, like back to back. Having all of your party be introduced at once is sometimes a recipe for not a lot of your party get shine. And I feel like there were moments in 3 that definitely had me like thinking like, damn, Senna has not done anything for 4 chapters. I wonder if she's going to get something soon. But I think that's to the benefit of the gameplay. I think in XENOBLADE Chronicles 2, you definitely got more inter-character stuff while you're waiting for characters like Zeke and Morag to be introduced to the party. And I think that especially comes through with your villains. I think that Torna was a better villain faction than the Ouroboros.
100,
or excuse me, the Mobius.
1,000,000%.
1 million, bro.
Yes,
I agree.
10 billion
I think the Torna crew made me care about them as villains way more than whenever N showed up on screen, and I'm sitting here like, all right, somebody get this fucking edgelord out of here, please.
Hold that thought, though, because I feel like that's its own part of this discussion.
Yeah,
like right
absolutely.
Now we're doing general impressions because
But
I feel like
I think
am
that
right there with you with the villain thing.
I think that makes it feel more grounded because when we're not going into the nitty gritty of all the characters, I don't need to learn somebody's entire backstory. I can get one or two things and keep moving. It feels more realistic in its presentation to me. Yeah. So I think that grounding of your character interactions helps a lot.
I will say too that I think I was going back and forth on whether or not I liked the fact that you get the full party so early on in this one, but I think I've come to the consensus after like playing a lot of the post game and going through stuff. I am happy that you get all 6 of them early, because even though there are moments where I'm like, man, this is dragging, or this could have been a heart to heart, I think to get to that moment in chapter 5 where, you know, all hope seems lost, it wouldn't hit as hard if you didn't have the full party by that point and know them so well. And
I also have thoughts on that where we could also make a whole discussion.
I feel like, well, chapter 5 is going to be its own part of the discussion as well.
Can I interject something?
Something
you said. So I personally am so glad heart to hearts aren't in this game, because the heart to hearts were like, I disliked I had to go away from where I am and where I'm adventuring to go to this random other location. I find it and I can't do it, and you have to come back later just to get a little interaction between characters. I don't really like that system. I liked it so much better than all that was just either in the story or in their own quest.
I don't like heart to hearts.
Here's why I disagree with all of you then, if you all think you don't like heart to hearts. It's because there are moments in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 specifically that feel as if they would have been heart to heart moments, where it's just like the characters talking around a campfire. It's nothing really of that importance to the plot, and yet it's part of like the core story that you have to get through. You still have to go to that location that's out of the way. You still have to do everything that you would have done for the heart to hearts, but you're forced to actually go do that
in the main story, though.
Part of the main story, right? But it's of no more importance being part of the main story than it would have been if it was a heart to heart. In not every situation, but in a lot of situations in this game.
Here's what I'll say. I think I'm meeting in the middle of the road for both ends here, where I think the concept of heart to hearts is really something the game could have benefited from, but having again the Xenoblade 3 kind of remedied it where you can put markers on the map and stuff like that, but having to go back to certain locations and having the mental memory of remembering to go back and having to grind certain gameplay aspects to even attain that heart to heart in the game,
I agree
was
with you
was a downside. But
that was the reward isn't like the reward is so like you just get some text.
Yeah, with Xenoblade 3, I feel like how you mentioned, Roger, with the campfire stuff, that's like a low end part of what they could consider heart to hearts. Whereas the ascension quest for the main party would be the higher end, where you get that huge lore dump, that huge exposition dumped onto you.
That I have I feel like though, because I feel like some of those ascension quests and some of the stuff that's like the side stories, specifically Senna's, that feels like that should have been main story stuff. Like, and I guess again, this goes into like a deeper conversation, so we should maybe table this for now, because
I'm gonna get my food.
I do want to say this real quick. I think overall, despite the fact that I'm coming out the gate with like a negative thing, I do genuinely really enjoy this game. I think it's a very good game, but I think overall I felt underwhelmed compared to the other main Xenoblade games as a whole. Like, I would say if I was gonna rank all of them, I would put 1 definitive edition at the top right now. And
that's crazy.
And then I would say Torna, and then I would say Xenoblade 2, and just barely after 2,
that's
3.
Crazy.
And then after 3, I would put the original Xenoblade 1, and then I would put Xenoblade Chronicles X. And
I would say, where's X?
Yeah, and X is on the bottom. And the only reason, like, all these games are good. I'm not saying this is like, oh, the ones that are near the bottom are trash. That's not what I mean at all. I think they're all good. It's a relative scale. It's just that I think of the main 3, especially now that Definitive Edition is out and they've cleared a lot of stuff with like the quality of life things and future connected, I think regardless of what people want to say with 3, the game was marketed to be the culmination of the story of 1 and 2. And while I agree with almost everybody that I think the core cast and the core story here is really solid, I think the aspect of it that was going to be the culmination of 1 and 2, like areas combining, getting remixes of certain themes. There's obviously really cool remixes, but a lot of that doesn't come into the game until like the post game. And the area themes in this one are like so
bland. They're so bland. No,
Xenoblade
No,
1
I did
got
not
more
hear a
planes,
single one, yeah.
Xenoblade 2's got like more Ardain, and I never had that moment of like genuine awe walking through any of the levels in 3. And I think for me, as somebody who like that's one of the primary reasons I play these games is for the really good soundtrack and for like these jaw-dropping areas. That's the aspect, other than the villains, I was underwhelmed by, and why I felt slightly underwhelmed by the game as a whole. But overall, I still think it's like a solid 8.5 or a 9, and I would still say it's like an amazing game. So go play it.
With regards to the soundtrack, I think prior to this discussion, I actually would have agreed with you, but I've been taking some time to listen to a lot of the music tracks that happen in the area themes, and I think there's a couple of issues with how the game presents its music. Number one, the menu theme, the pause menu theme, I think is the piece of music itself is fine, but it's very intrusive.
Yes,
so you don't actually get time to really just sit and let the music play. And I think considering the nature of this game, where the environment overall is a lot more somber, it's a lot more reserved, it's meant to be a much more heavy game in tone, I think having that menu music constantly interrupt really hurts the overall level of the soundtrack. But when you go back and listen to the tracks, just like if you're just having a relaxing night or something, there's a lot of really, really nice moments of musical storytelling in there.
Yes.
Even right from the jump. If you go back and listen to Everblight Plain, the day version of that track, the very first track, area track that you hear, for the first couple of minutes, you hear a ticking noise in the background to signify the flame clocks. Eventually, that ticking noise goes away, and the track kind of becomes a lot more unsteady and a lot more uncertain. So from the first track of the game, they are putting that idea of the main story theme of the game in your head. And I love shit like that. But it doesn't come across well enough when you're playing the game.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's the issue,
and that's
though,
definitely
right?
a problem.
Yeah, because I'm right there with you. I think standalone, there are really like a lot of great little motifs that are in the background of certain songs, but you hit the nail on the head, Viram. Like in the actual game, when it's happening, when you're experiencing it in the game, it's kind of lackluster compared to some of the other ones that are jaw-dropping from the get-go in the previous games.
Yeah.
But I think, the way you explained it is like perfect, chef's kiss.
The best like example that I think works even more for this for me, I don't know if you guys came across it a lot in your playthrough, not so much with the menu theme. You're fighting a boss, it's got a really good song kicking in the back and it's building up, and then you hit your chain attack. And then the chain attack music plays for 40 minutes.
Problem from X. So like this was okay. So Xenoblade X, which is I'll just say it, that's the Xenoblade thing, has the worst story and the worst final boss by far. But we'll see what people think about this one. But I hated that X is like overdrive or die. You have to use overdrive. It's that good. So like final boss, I'm using overdrive. Eventually I mess up, it ends, and the music kicks in, and it's the trailer theme, and it's like shit. I would have loved to listen to that. I was so happy in this game that when you're fighting Z, whenever you chain attack, it does not play your theme; it plays.
Oh at the end,
it was so good.
Which is so confusing to me.
But it's so cool because like.
But you're showing that you can play different tracks during chain attacks. So why not play specific boss themes? Like for when you're fighting N and like right before you finally get him to break and realize what he's done is wrong, like why then am I listening to this like super almost like chipper? Yeah, like this.
The funny thing is
chain attack music.
The funny thing about that is those tracks are present in the game. If you don't chain attack and you get them to low health, the music does dynamically change.
Right, right. I mean, there were definitely instances in which I was battling a boss, and simply because I wanted to hear more of the music, I did not chain attack.
I pressed it,
which is super weird situations.
But by the end of the game, and I will definitely get into this, because like I kind of agree with McDareth that X is the worst final boss in the series, but in terms of the mainline games, bro, it's like definitively Xenoblade 3 is like the worst. The entire final like 2 hours of this had me grinding my teeth, and I hated it.
This is gonna be an interesting discussion.
It'll be a good conversation.
Interesting take on that.
By that ending portion and that final fight, I was purposely using the chain attack so I didn't have to hear that music anymore because I was so angry and I needed some upbeat. But real quick,
I want to say with the thought of that.
Oh, go ahead.
If I
you
could
jump
do it
on it
real
before
fast.
Zeph comes back. Yeah.
I like that even okay, it was kind of sad in some boss fights that you couldn't hear their song, but I like that the way they themed the chain attack, and I think the final boss got this across perfectly, is that the chain attack is your triumph. So it kicks in your theme because your party is fighting back with all their strength. So the final boss is so well that because it's so hopeless that you just hear his theme the whole time. I chain attacked on that boss, I don't know, not counting the 3 free ones, probably like 3 times. Every single time except the very last one. When I was on the final phase and we were turning the tides, we're about to win, then our theme kicked in. It made the chain attack theme mean so much more to me because it kicked in right then. So it's like that moment of triumph kicks in and you just take out the boss with it. It was so good. The way
I get that 100%, but when the game tells me that my chain attack is the largest proportionate of damage, right? I hit chain attack and most bosses will either lose 75% of their health to just one shot kill.
Yeah, they just
it stops becoming less impactful by the 89th or so time that I chain attack. You know,
I mean,
because
I played on hard and I played on hard. I was higher level than most things, and most bosses not needed to chain attack. But if I press chain attack, I built my team to do it. They went from 80% to dead.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the issue, I think, with at least a lot of the mechanics for the boss fighting in this game. More specifically, I think there's some issues with the leveling system. I'll double back to that. But when bosses are set to have like this rage mechanic, and you can see it on their health bar, and it's supposed to like signify like, you know, mechanics are about to change up in some way, almost like you're entering a enraged state for other video game bosses, right? You look at that rage mechanic and then you realize if I press the start button, I don't have to deal with that. And when you're fighting so many bosses and unique monsters, and you know, like your named enemies, and like you see that plus button there, and it's like I can spend, you know, maybe about like 5 or 6 minutes fighting this boss normally, or I can hit the plus button and I just do 4 million damage bar minimum, right? It feels like when your theme is kicking in, imagine like every single time, like in any sort of media, right? Like every time Iron Man is on screen, the Avengers theme plays. It loses its importance, at least to me, because every single time that I hear it, I'm like, oh, yep, fight's over. There will be some fights, obviously, where certain bosses, you know, resist your chain attack ever so slightly. You might get a mess up. You don't get your hero chain early. You might not have the hero with you that in order to get all 3 of your dedicated chain orders, right? But there's going to be majority of the time, every time you hit that chain attack button, you are killing something. I very much appreciate the fact that chain attack is not linked to your ability to revive your party members anymore. I think that is a fantastic change.
Yeah.
But I do think there should be a little bit more of a limiter on it than just I built up a bar from doing damage.
Go ahead, Coast. You were going to say something.
I was going to say that song is still fucking badass, bro. And on top of that, I think, especially with this game, well, in general, like my opinion is this is the best soundtrack out of all the Xenoblade games, but I think specifically with this game, every battle theme, no matter what, was an absolute.
There's
all like the battle and themes like stood out.
Like
all the
themes were not with the battle themes. It was with the overworld stuff. You know, the battle themes all slap. Yeah.
Now hold on.
Hold on. Yeah.
The overworld themes and the area themes or whatever, I think that's a discussion too, but I think this argument where areas needed to have like a dedicated theme where in Xenoblade 3 they sounded more generic, I think that'll grow on people over time because those themes were composed so beautifully. Again, like Viram said, if you go back and listen to all of those overworld themes from Xenoblade 2, not just like town themes and stuff like that, but the actual overworld themes, a lot of them are very bare bones and droning and generic. If you go and listen to the Xenoblade 3 ones, there's a lot of depth in them, not even just motifs and stuff like that, like musically, like artistically, there is so much depth in those songs. I highly advise everyone just go back and listen to the songs. I'm assuming a bunch of people have already because the songs are really well done, but just go back and really sit down and take in the songs because they are done so well.
Oh, I can't emphasize it.
I agree.
Atmospheric, right? They're atmospheric and they are deep, and I agree with you. But literally, if you asked me right now, as somebody who, again, like, I'm a huge Xenoblade fan, if you asked me to hum any area theme, I literally can't do it for this game. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I could easily, even in
I might have been able to do it like 2 months ago.
Right, when I was first playing it. But like to this day, I still can hear dun 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 dun.
Well, that's the thing. Like that's my personal biggest gripe with the game is nothing's wrong with having like a. Sorry, I'm talking while chewing.
No, it's okay.
There's nothing wrong with having like a more grounded, somber story and RPG, but when I play RPGs, I like the bombastic, like grand adventures.
Yeah, and I think there's nothing wrong with them doing something different for this one, but I think it's a big reason as to why so many people are split.
It's just I never had a moment where I walked into an area and heard Gaur Plains and been like, yeah, this is it.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
no, I just think like also like just in general like with this game like my thing about it is I think the game is very streamlined in a good way. Like it doesn't have any of those things because I felt like I'll never forget the first time they asked me to get a mastery skill to progress and I was like, what the hell is this? And I haven't even started doing this and I have to go and out of my way to upgrade this thing I have no idea about. And it felt like a lot of times it would like halt my experience, whereas this game was very streamlined. Like, I would do side quests, I would do hero quests, and well, for me, I'm just saying generally, I was able to do.
No, I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But to me, as someone who gets all that stuff, it felt like at the start, at least, it was holding my hand a little too much. Like there was so much stuff that I wanted to get, and it just took a very long time to build up to it. But it was explaining it, so that was nice.
Yeah.
Also, like
I fully understand
early
that
on,
approach,
early on, if you go and like before, like I guess before you get chain attacked. Early on, if you go and like try to fight most unique monsters with that chain attack, you just get blown away.
Yeah. No, it's like it. I think like the game is very streamlined. It's very dope. But yeah, I agree. Like music and even just areas in general, like were very like not stand out to me. And the one place that is meant to be the standout, which is like the ocean area,
right? The sea.
I disliked it. I hate when they introduce.
I don't like the sea.
I hate when they introduce ship stuff.
Because
yeah, and it's like
I love that kind of thing in something like Wind Waker, right? But in a game like this, where I'm used to literally walking through all these cool environments, and every island just pretty much looks like the same, because everything in the sea area, they're all just like grassy islands. They're different. There's some that have mountains. There are some that have different story quests. Like when you get the flag girl, what's her name, Fiona? Like when you get her, like that's a fun story bit, or like when you meet Triton, that's cool too. But the areas themselves are all like generic green mountainous area on the sea. I am
and like
bro,
like,
not even that. The boat mechanics made me dislike that area even more because it's such a pain in the ass.
You can't even like summon your boat to you like at any point. Like you have to like either go spawn on another island.
You have to spawn on the island where you last departed your boat.
Yeah. No, it's
you spawn on any island. You teleport to any of the islands, and the boat will teleport to you.
Yeah.
I figured that out by accident. I wish it kind of like blatantly told you that, because like I was scared of fast traveling.
The first time I fast traveled into that area, I was like, if it fucking doesn't spawn this boat next to me.
One thing
I thought I was gonna have to go back to Salmon's fucking harbor every single time to get the boat.
Just to end on the music shit, the one thing I'm super fucking disappointed about, and it ties in with the fast traveling shit, I discovered that there were a ton of fucking night themes, because when you fast travel, it always makes it daytime, and I never heard these night themes, so I went back and listened to the soundtrack, and I'm like, wait, this is the fucking night theme? Holy shit!
So, I'm surprised by some of this stuff, because again, I spent way too much time on this game, so all this stuff I just ran into from just running around.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of like I don't want to call the game unpolished or anything, because it clearly is, but there's like a lot of weird quality of life stuff missing.
Dude, there's like, I'm so glad you said that, because that's what I said at the end of when I finished my playthrough.
There's just so much weird shit missing that would take them like.
I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but like one thing that really stood out to me in this one, like badly, more than any other Xenoblade game, was the dialogue. The dialogue in certain areas of this game is like so tedious and so bottom of the barrel in terms of Xenoblade. And that's not to speak ill of the stuff that's really good, right? Like when the writing is good in this game, it's peak. It's like the best Xenoblade has ever been. But there are so many scenes in this one where it's like, oh, we're going to go to this location. What do you think? And you'll have every single party member go, yeah, I think we should do this. How about you? Yeah, okay, let's do this thing. Yeah, let me repeat the same thing again. Okay, let's go. All right, off we go.
think that is
so much, and it like bothered me to no end because I'm just mashing through the buttons like, come on, all right, like, come on, I get this, let's go. And I don't want to skip the scene because obviously there could be something important, but 9 times out of 10, there was nothing important.
And there's certain scenes, if you skip, you skip a lot of stuff.
Exactly, right.
I think that with this, yes, it does get a little bit monotonous, but I think having at the risk of having like a little bit of like a more shallow like valley and building up to these high points, you get moments where it might feel irritating and tedious to go through the dialogue, but never once did I feel like with playing Xenoblade 1 or 2 that the dialogue ever got like cringy.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Completely.
Like there are definitely moments in Xenoblade 2 where I was playing through and I was like, I'm just gonna skip this scene. I really don't care about it. It has driven me to the point of wanting to skip it, not based on tedium, but based on almost like a secondhand embarrassment.
See, and a lot of the stuff that I did find cringy in Xenoblade 2, in terms of the dialogue, the stuff that would make me go like that was stuff that was all relegated to side mission stuff. Whereas, like, the things I'm talking about in 3, most of the time were, like, in main missions on your way to your next objective. Which is, like, why probably for me it stood out more than in some of the other ones, because I'm always doing side mission stuff, but I'm normally not streaming the side mission stuff. This is the first situation in which, like, I streamed the main story, and I was sitting there like, man, I wish it wasn't like this.
I feel I had a similar problem with you, but on a much smaller scale near the end of the game.
Oh,
where
God.
they were. I feel like they were trying to figure out how to wrap up how they wanted these characters to, present themselves. And I feel like it was a case of, you can borrow my homework, but just change it up a little. And like characters were just kind of repeating the same justifiable words, but just in different ways, and I was just like, is this really needed? Like, I get the point they're trying to push, but I feel like it was very overbearing and
right.
Overbearing is a good word.
It's interesting because like obviously this is a different game. As somebody who's played like Genshin Impact, maybe it's just because that game has kind of forged that patience for me, because that game is truly that game is truly like the most bloated game
I have skipped most cutscenes in that game.
So I think when it came to this game, and particularly since I was somebody that did like Medareth, I did pretty much everything that there was to do, so I think I just kind of developed a patience for it. I think that kind of stuff didn't bother me. I'm definitely somebody that gets bothered more by particular moments being cringe, like in Xenoblade 2, rather than just like sluggish dialogue. But
it's kind of weird that you would bring up sluggish dialogue for Genshin, because that game is king of watch these characters say the same thing for 72 paragraphs.
Exactly. I am in complete agreement, right? I also
I was about to say that is
that is where my patience draws in.
But I think in Genshin, the thing is, you can very clearly see, based on like the story beats, what you can skip and what you can't. You know what I mean? Like, whereas in this one, like Coast was saying, there's moments where like it might feel like you can skip stuff, but if you skip stuff, you are going to skip something very important in this one. Whereas like in Genshin, again, it's telegraphed better, in which like I could be like, okay, I could safely skip all this repetitive dialogue and not miss a beat. And I think that's another reason why it stood out too, because I'm also in agreement with Genshin. Genshin does the exact same thing. Something
granted, else. I'm also someone that doesn't skip dialogue at all.
I didn't skip.
I'm somebody who played through every playthrough I did of 3 houses. I never skipped the dialogue.
Oh my God,
you're multiple playthroughs. You're in hell.
Yeah, I mean, like, speaking of dialogue, I mean, obviously we're touching on the characters, and I was saying that, yeah, I really love this cast because they felt there was something about them that felt very personal. I mean, obviously you have like a romance with Noah and Mio that I thought was handled really well, because obviously that's always a very big, because like with Xenoblade 2, right, it's like, yeah, like it was very clear, and obviously by the end it's very clear Rex and Mithra Pyra had like a kind of a romantic dynamic, but I really thought the way it was handled with Noah and Mio felt very realistic.
Agreed.
And personal. I really do like, again, I like that everybody had sort of a gang. Like you had Senna and what's his name? I forgot his name. Yeah, Lance. And then obviously you have Uni
and Tyon.
Yeah, Uni and Tyon. And I like that they had these different dynamics. I think they really worked well together. And I also like that they didn't necessarily force each other to all be at the same level of friendship, because I think like, yeah, it's okay for people to have like preference in you know who they stick around with. You know, there were characters like Senna would talk to Noah or talk to Uni, and they would have conversations, but they each had their partner, and obviously because they're linked with Ouroboros too, and seeing each other's thoughts.
But I also like the way you're saying too with the partners, because like with Lance and Senna, they're like happy, fun gym buddies, right? And
yes,
then Uni and Tyon by the end of the game are kind of like friends with benefits. Honestly.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
And then Noah and Mio genuinely like are in love with each other, right?
Exactly.
And so that aspect of it I love. Go ahead, Coast.
The way I view it is it's the same aspect as Fidel. There's the game giving you 6 characters at the start gives the player multiple avenues to relate to all of these characters.
Yeah.
Not even in a single one dimension, like one-to-one, like, hey, I relate to Tyon, hey, I relate to Noah, but like having those relationships viewed in game very naturally is something that you can personally take away. Whereas you have Xenoblade 2, where you have Rex and his harem of characters, it's not on the same scale of personability. Like the way that they handled these characters, it was very fine-tuned. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, Senna, as a result, I think for me was a character I ended up liking a lot more than I was expecting going in. Particularly, you know, by like the mid to late game, because like you realize like the personal flaws and insecurities that character has, and how they've kind of defined her, and the whole relationship she has with Shania, and how they're like foils to each other, and just she ended up being like a much more nuanced and interesting character than I was expecting. And I think honestly that just applies to the whole cast. I feel like each one of them is very maturely handled.
Yeah. And actually,
I felt that way about
too.
I felt that
on the topic of Senna and Shania, you know, we are going to have a villain talk at some point during this, but I will say Shania I thought was an excellent villain, and
I thought she was an excellent villain because she was a character I wanted to hate.
Because I think
she did her job.
Yes, because Shania and Senna, that bit of the game, like where you're doing Senna's side story, I thought that really should have been main story stuff. That should not be side story.
Gondor's side story too?
Gondor's, because it is essentially Gondor's too.
Yeah, it's it's funny to me because the Senna, like, it's funny if Varum says he really likes Senna, because of me, Senna's the least, because I feel like she hasn't done anything. I see her progression, but in terms of what she adds to any given conversation or her own side story, she's always just like a background character.
But I think that's part of her story, right?
I think the issue with that is, like how I was saying earlier, introducing all 6 of your main cast, you're going to have those moments where it's like, you're going to see like they push Noah and Mio in front of you a lot, I feel, and that's valid. They are the main characters. They have the most involvement in the story. Uni has a very unique rely to a specific mechanic in lore, and then you have Tyon, who has a very, very strong relationship with his country and specific members of his military that need to be addressed a little bit more. So I feel like Senna and Lance both, they kind of get relegated to sideline conversations where they're not going to provide much impact because the world hasn't really been built for them.
I kind of disagree on Lance though, because Lance and the Yorin thing.
Real quick.
Lance and Yorin hit the whole
Let
time.
McDareth. I'm going to say McDareth, say your piece, and then go into Coast, because I keep hearing Coast get talked over, and I know there was something you wanted to hop in on.
It's good. No, I want everyone to get their pieces.
Okay, cool. Go ahead, McDareth.
because okay, so for Lands compared to Senna, is that like I get Senna's whole thing is that she was very much like Shania. She was trying to copy people. Like I got that, but then if that's what they want to tell, why was it that Gondor is the person that did the final blow on Shania, and not Senna, right? Because that to me makes it feel like this isn't Senna's story. She's standing in the back watching. While Lands, all the stuff around Lands is very obvious that he puts himself, like, it's obvious the fault that he sees, that he felt that he wasn't good enough to save Yoren, and how he tries to tough himself up because of that. And I felt like throughout the story, I could see that in Lands, while Senna was kind of almost in every dialogue with Senna in it. She's kind of like, yeah, I agree, guys, let's do it. I don't see her do stuff. People mention like
I was going to say that is the specific thing. Lands has Yoren, but once Yoren is off screen and dealt with, Lands falls to that sideline with Senna. I don't think that you reach the last third of the game and Lands' involvement in any story beat feels any sort of relevant compared to someone like Noah, Mio. You know, you have like their involvement, like I said, which is very big.
Noah and Mio are like the main characters.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. They're the main characters and they get that, right? But when you have your other characters show up all at the same time and you're trying to juggle like showcasing what they're doing, certain characters do fall to that wayside of not being important. And if their specific thing is mishandled, they feel less important. And I think that's kind of what happened with Senna.
The thing I view it as, though, is the Z thing and the Ouroboros thing. I think that is Noah and Mio's story for sure. And the thing is, like, all those side stories with Yoren and Shania, those were those characters' stories, and that was it. The rest of the game, they're as support pieces for Noah and Mio. Their story was told once that quest is done.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we're saying the same thing.
Then I'm misunderstanding. Okay. Then I'm on the same page with you.
We're saying the same thing, and I feel like that.
I think it was just the pacing. Like I feel if you were to do all of that stuff really early on to fully establish those characters, that would be a lot for someone to take in.
Absolutely.
And the way that they kind of pushed a lot of Senna stuff to the very end was kind of disrespectful to that character, because that further pushed that narrative that she is that character in the back. Not many people are going to have an opportunity to see her in the light more and kind of just disregard her. I do think they could have paced those quests, all of that stuff, a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what Zeph was saying before too with the polish, right? Is that's probably what adds to the feeling of me that like something needed to be polished a little more in terms of the pacing and in terms of the way stuff is drawn out. Because I am also right there with you that as I was playing through the game, it did seem like, oh, this chapter is going to focus on this character now, right?
Yeah.
Very like Death Stranding, Metal Gear kind of way, right? Where you have each chapter and, okay, this person is the focus of this one. And so by the time I got to Senna and it really wasn't focusing on Senna anymore, I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing with the story. I guess we're not going to get what I was expecting from this character. Which was a shame because, again, like I loved Tyon's early on. I've thought, I'm surprised we haven't honestly talked about her more. Uni is like far and away not only my favorite character in this game, but like one of my favorite Xenoblade characters, period, now, because she's got
that's what I was going to ask.
Fantastic.
She's got
I was going to ask.
She's got the feeling of like a classic Xenoblade character, like someone like Orion, but at the same time, like that moment at the end of, I want to say chapter 3, where she really comes to terms with like who she is and her being the one to discover first, like see her own corpse on the battlefield. Yeah, I thought that stuff was like fascinating. Yeah, and that also endeared me to the random nameless Mobius of the week that happened with her, right? Because then you are tied to this person who killed her on the battlefield, and it makes that story much more interesting, because I feel like this will be another discussion, but I feel like so many of the Mobius or like villains of the week that are in this game just like completely fell flat to me because you don't get to spend enough time with that character. And that goes all the way up to the very top, where like characters like X and Y, who literally made the flame clocks and the colonies, don't even get death cutscenes, really don't get any backstory at all it's like minor things that happen in side stories, and instead we end up spending time with like O and J that we don't need to spend time with. You could have relegated some of that stuff, or even some of the side missions, to X and Y to flesh them out more.
Also, not giving them names is the worst thing ever, because I already have forgotten which letter is which. It's like it's gonna be impossible.
I only remember the important letters.
Y is the guy from calling the Omega, and
T is the goat.
But that's what I just think
don't
like
even remember T. Who is T?
Yeah, there's
Triton.
no-
He's the
Triton.
soul hacker.
Oh yeah, Triton. Yeah.
Oh, right. Triton. You're right. Okay.
Yeah. All the side quest ones I forgot. But all the like the main story ones.
Honestly, though, like in
Obviously.
reality,
That's so funny.
in reality, other than the clones, like the only Mobius that matter are X, Y, and Z.
Their theme
Yeah.
does slap though. The Mobius theme is amazing.
Oh yeah. That's
Bro,
awesome.
that one
It's so
Mobius in Sagiri's quest, who just gets one shot, I almost threw up all over myself.
Yeah.
I thought that funny as hell. Like we're supposed to be this big bad, like evil faction. Oh, I guess I will almost get off screen.
I'm curious to know what your guys' favorite characters are.
Uni, like
Far
I
and
said.
away, like
Okay, so
Uni,
can we do
I
like
think,
favorite party
echoing.
and favorite hero?
Let's go Discord order. Let's do favorite party, favorite hero. Go ahead, Fidel.
Okay. Favorite party, I'm gonna say it's Lance, because I just like that kind of character. You know, little doofy, has some depth to his backstory.
He's you.
Yes, he does. He does have meisms. It's true. So I love him the most. And then side character, I really like. Who would be the best hero character? Oh, the gunslinger. I love the gunslinger, dude.
Gray.
What's
Yeah, Gray.
Gray is awesome.
So for me, it was Noah and Uni are tied. Like I just like main characters, and I felt like Noah was like such a good Xenoblade main character, where he didn't have the Rex thing. Where I get the story with Rex, where he had to grow into it. They did that story with Noah, but it just felt more like I could feel what Noah was going through as he's trying to figure out why all this is happening. He has to deal with N. Even N makes Noah to me even stronger, because like he is Noah, but it's like N would have done what Noah would have done. He would have pushed forward with full conviction that what he's doing was going to be right in the end. And then, of course, Uni is just such a well-made character. I'm sure someone else is going to talk about her enough. And then Ashura is my favorite hero. I love the bounce between Ashura and the party. Like, you take her somewhere, she says something outrageous, Uni or someone else just snaps at her about it. And it's just like, especially the dynamic between her and Uni was incredibly funny. So I liked Ashura a lot.
I guess for me, I would probably say Lance as well. I think Lance was the character that I liked the most out of everyone. For heroes, it's probably a tie between Triton and Gondor. I liked how outlandish both of them were, unfiltered they were. Triton's Ascension quest is very silly. I really liked it.
Hated Gondor, bro.
Her
voice
I really
drove
like
me.
Gondor.
Her voice
surprised.
drove me
Gondor,
insane.
I thought would be a Fidel
Bro,
character.
no, her voice drives me insane. I hated her voice because
Really?
she just like,
bitch lady.
"Why are you making a bitch lady? I don't know what you mean." I'm like,
Oh, no,
"It's your
what's
stop
bitch
talking."
queen, right?
Bitch queen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
bitch queen.
It's like
Yeah,
every
yeah,
time it's like, that's your mom.
Well, yeah, no, I was like,
Bro, that's what I was like too. I was like,
aggressiveness
bro,
with
she
her
birthed
voice.
you, man.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Chris? Who are your picks?
Definitely out of the main cast, I gotta say this, like to preface it, I walked into this not expecting to find a character that I liked as much as XC2's Zeke and Nia. Because when you get, like I said, when you get introduced to that whole party, I thought there was going to be a lot less focus for the sake of gameplay. But I ended up walking away with two standout favorites in Lance and Uni. Uni providing that like type of like really like almost like level-headed sass, you know, like somebody brings up something that's slightly outlandish or something that can be slightly made fun of, and she is right there to kind of like drive into it and make fun of somebody. I don't know if you've seen the screenshot. I can't remember what conversation it was, but it's Uni replying with, "And that's why you can't make friends."
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have that saved as a
I can't
reaction
remember where it
image.
was, but I remember.
Yeah, I
that.
can't remember where it was, but
There
I
was
have it
something related
saved.
to
I love
tie-on,
it.
wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was something related to it,
Yeah.
and like she gives
she's
that
like-
little jab at him.
she's among the smarter people in the party. It's just that she's not like the strategist like Tyon is, or she's not the leader like Noah, but she's definitely a very intelligent character nonetheless. But she's definitely a great time.
I did end up walking away not really liking Mio or Noah as much as the rest of the party, but I'll talk about that later, because Uni and Lan's favorite characters by country miles.
Did you say Hero?
No, characters. Hero, I have a favorite gameplay one, Isard, my beloved. And then two like favorites back to back are Ashera and Kamaravi, I think are tied. I love those characters.
I am shocked. Just going into my picks, I am shocked. Nobody has mentioned the hero I'm going to bring up. I am genuinely
I swear to
shocked,
God, if you
bro.
say what I'm thinking.
Bro, how
No,
are
I know
none
what
of
he's saying.
saying Ethel? How are none of you saying Ethel?
So the thing,
You're right.
She's
Like,
not-
far
she's not
away.
yet.
She
Never mind.
is
No.
essentially
Here.
to me
No.
like
Here
one
is
of
the
my
issue.
favorites of
You're
the
right,
main
never mind, it's
characters.
Ethel.
I love it. Not only do I like Ethel's story, I think the whole thing at the end where like she de-ages and you have to age her up is kind of weird, but like her story with Kamaravi, I would actually say they're kind of tied. The back-to-back between Ethel and Kamaravi is really good.
It's awesome,
I
yeah.
felt
what is
something
it,
in that-
chapter 4?
I think it's
No.
earlier than that. It's like 3 or
Is it chapter?
2.
Yeah, it's
No,
like
it's
chapter-
4. It's 4.
Yeah, I thought it was chapter 4.
When
Yeah,
that
no,
moment where
their
the two
fight
of
is
them
chapter
kill each
4.
other in the fight, I thought is incredible. The
That
moment
shit
where
is
they
the
come
best
back
moment
to
in the
life
game.
is sick.
Oh.
I think like her as a character, like the cold-hearted tactical kind of bit, like before she gets possessed very early on, I thought was really good. And I just really genuinely like her design, and I like her class. I use Flash Fencer all the time, and so I
Her
like
class
that
is
about
actually
Ethel,
Their
too.
class is
Yeah,
broken.
it's
Her
super
class.
good.
I use
As you
Flash
Catfin is
Fencer's
busted on Noah.
I use Flash Fencer's skills on Noah. The only reason why my brain shuts off thinking about Ethel as a hero is because you lose her at chapter 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
But
And
that's
she's
what
And
I
you
was
don't
gonna
get her
say.
back until chapter 7.
That's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna
Fun
say.
hero quest, I think. So
No, well, like this is the thing. The game starts. They introduce Ethel. You get that one epic screenshot where she's on that mech and shit, like fighting
With the
Kamaravi, and I'm like,
Sure.
I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, this is so fucking sick, dude! I can't wait to see more of this character. Chapter that shit, with
Kamaravi.
yeah, that shit happens. I'm like, oh man, fuck. And then it like you lose her. She comes back as a child, and I'm like, what the fuck happened, bro? Where did this go? Like, I feel like they dropped the ball on Ethel. Me
Super.
personally.
She could-
I am
well,
right there
agree-
with you.
I agree that they
I
could have
love
done
her
more
as
with
a
their
character.
character,
I
but
love
liked
her
what we
design.
got.
I
Yeah.
love her class. I love her personality and all that. But the way that they just handled her story, like there are some aspects that are, all right, cool. I like the rivalry between her and Kamaravi, but
Yep.
just the way it gets resolved afterwards, how they lose their memories and she's a kid and all that shit. It's just like, what the fuck? Like this is JRPG shit. Like I couldn't.
I didn't
couldn't
like the
enjoy
memory
it.
losing aspect, especially because right after you finish that, was it the Ascension quest or was it Kamaravi's Hero quest?
It's Kamaravi's
where-
Hero Quest.
where you age her back up, and she was like, "Oh, Silvercoat Ethel, I know that name." And Smoldering Kamar. It's like, okay, if
Yeah.
you're gonna give her some portion of her memories back, then just go ahead and give her all of her memories back,
Yeah.
and give me the character you took away from me 40 hours ago.
I think it's funny. Actually, I don't know if many of you did this. If you have Ethel aged up, you go back to Colony 4 and talk to the the standing commander.
Boliaris.
Boliaris. He doesn't have a voice line for it, but he goes, "Wait, there's no way I'm seeing Ethel here." And he had specific lines. The fact that you bring her there.
Yeah, right,
He's just in
right.
disbelief that she's there.
No, but so Ethel was my choice for my favorite hero, kind of tied with Kamaravi, and
Yeah.
and then obviously we all love Melia and Nia too. But the thing is, you get them so late that it's kind of like you can't really choose them. You
Yeah,
know,
I was
it's
gonna
just-
say
yeah.
that's
it's
a
based
that's a cheat answer.
That's exactly,
cheating,
it's a
yeah.
cheat answer, right? But and I've already talked about this already. Uni is far and away my favorite party member. I would say second for me would probably be Noah, but I would also say it would be like a Noah and Mio tie because their stories are so intertwined. But yeah, Uni, favorite party member, and favorite hero, Ethel. I really want to ask though before we go to Viram, Coast, who did you think I was gonna say?
I thought you were gonna say Alexandria.
Oh no.
Yeah,
I thought
I
Ghost was
was
gonna say that.
No, I got severely disappointed with that character. They revealed her and shit. I'm like, she's got a badass weapon. Her design is sick. I can't wait to see more of this character. And I played the game and I was just like, what the fuck is this character, dude? What is this hero, man?
Her class is very good. Yeah.
Her class is good. Don't get me wrong, but her
sure.
story is absolute ass.
Not as
I
bad
had-
as Juniper's.
Yeah.
Virum, you're up.
Juniper got done dirty. In the party, it's like a bunch of others. It's Uni as well. Yeah, just in case you thought I was going to say Senna, no, it's Uni. Just every moment with that character, just pretty much every moment with that character, and every time she opened her mouth, it put a smile on my face. She's just really, really well constructed. She's really funny, and but at the same time, they handled her with a lot of care, which is amazing. Second would be a toss-up between like Tyon and Senna. I honestly, I just really liked the cast as a whole. I think it's very, very strong, and I don't think there are any real weak links.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the heroes, it's a toss-up between Ashira and Fiona for a bunch of reasons.
Damn.
One, gameplay, character's
they're-
fucking broken.
If you're on hard, you can't use anyone else. They're so good.
Two, I really enjoyed, and for me, Fiona is very much tied to her colony more so than any of the others. I really, really liked the whole Colony Muse storyline and what it meant for her, and how she had to be kind of strong-willed in the face of all this pressure that she was being put under to run this colony as this young girl. But yeah, I really came to enjoy what that character in the colony had to offer in general.
I think with and in case of Fiona, I feel like my enjoyment towards her story and all that was devalued from how you actually have to go about playing it. Because if I remember, it was a ton of fetch quests, and I was just so disinterested after completing it.
Yeah,
I
me, there's a lot.
had no motivation to continue that story.
Yeah, there's a lot to do in that one.
Yeah.
Zeph, you're up. Who's your favorite party member, favorite hero?
I don't think I have a favorite party member. My favorite hero's probably. Honestly, I don't know. I guess Kamaravi because of his class.
Bro, I know who your favorite party member is.
Who is it?
What?
It's Manana, bro.
I don't like Manana.
Manana.
I'm surprised.
Manana.
I'm surprised no one brought up the Nopons.
Whatever.
Riku is the best Nopon in the series.
Riku's
amazing.
Three.
But also, Riku knows something, and they're hinting at it. It bothers me. That knowing look he gives Melia, he knows something.
Yeah, I also agree.
100%.
I think that's definitely going to be in the DLC when we eventually
100%.
get it.
What does he know?
Well, it's
I
obvious
love
he knows
Riku's
something
voice.
if he
Riku's
has the
voice is
fucking if he has that
Yeah.
sword.
Yeah, he had lucky sevens. He
Yeah.
was a Nopon Smith. Like
Bro, that
Yeah, he
shit
knows a
he
lot.
says, that line he says in chapter 5, I was like, what the fuck does he know, bro?
What was he?
Does he
cooking?
know?
Does he know? I wanted
Remember
to say
dumbass
'cause-
fucking theories when this game was first revealed. People were like, "Dude, it's Rex and Pi." I was gonna fucking kill myself.
I was gonna.
I mean, to be fair, we do get that moment with Rex in the harem at the end of the game, in the very
Yeah.
end.
Man,
So it's like,
there's never been something I wish I was live reacting to more than that
oh, you didn't
because
do a live reaction to
I
it?
did not.
Oh,
I didn't.
no.
The audible scream because I was like like this is the first time I was really like in a long, long time I've ever been in tears at an ending. So I'm tearing up about this and realizing these people are about to separate, and I'm like crying, and then I just see this picture.
Poppy comes out the fucking Poppy comes out the fucking
so Poppy comes out. I'm
Oh
like, oh my
bro.
god, it's
I
Poppy.
was so mad. So
Yo.
mad. You can go back and watch my stream. I'm
Yeah.
like, Poppy was in there, and people are like, oh, but she's powering the castle or whatever. That's some bullshit, bro.
Dude.
How do you have Poppy in the game and not have some
I
type of
know.
quest, something regarding
I
Poppy
know.
in the
Is
whole
that
lead-up
and,
to
like-
this? That is
and
some
Melia
absolute
has
bullshit.
Monado Rex. She just has it.
That too.
Yeah,
Yeah, she just got
yeah.
the Monado.
And I just the audibles. When I saw that image, I was like, "What the fuck is this?" I had a panic attack, and then like the scene is following up with this depressing song, that I've just heard a million times on like. They're like running to each other, and I'm like, bro, I'm just gonna lose my mind. This is
real
too
quick,
much.
I'll ask some of you that might have been diving into
Donkey,
lore.
by the way.
Wait, what did Donkey do?
He spoiled that shit for me.
Oh yes.
really?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so
What happened?
tough.
He tweeted
He
out
tweeted the
image,
goddamn
for
picture.
spoiler.
Oh, when?
He tweeted the picture, and a lot.
He
of
just
people
randomly
were like,
tweeted
"Oh,
it.
man."
Oh,
And then deleted
it. Man, that sucks.
I would have been so
I would've
upset
been
if I had
pissed,
seen
yeah.
that.
No,
Yeah, I would
thankfully
have.
I didn't get spoiled, but one thing that people have been talking about with me afterwards, and I've been hearing all the stupid theories about it, but I think we know, right, that Mio is Nia and Rex's daughter.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
Descendant.
Yeah.
Was it
Maybe not their
implied
daughter, but definitely
Yeah,
a
like-
descendant.
Okay, so then my question would be, is Kamaravi Rex and Pyrez?
That could be.
And is
No,
Chris?
because it's no,
It's
no,
Chris,
because
Mithra,
the hair was
and
red.
Rex's.
No. His hair is not red. His hair isn't
Kamaravi's,
red.
is it?
Yeah, you
No,
can
his
see the
hair's not
child-
red. It's just on fire.
Yeah,
Okay.
you
Yeah.
can see the child she's
He's
holding
got
has
brown.
red hair, and the
Okay,
same.
okay.
I don't even know about Chris because I don't think his hair was blonde enough.
Yeah.
It was like a dirty blonde.
I'm
Chris is
assuming
also
that
from
Senna's.
Canada, so there's no way.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Senna's a descendant of Morag or.
Oh, yeah, like,
Bridget's
I think
for
she's-
sure. She's definitely
I think
Bridget's.
she's Bridget and Aegeon because she's the markings
Yeah.
of Aegeon and
yeah,
Bridget's
yeah, yeah.
hair.
Yeah, I agree.
So my main question, and maybe you lore heads can answer me, because I had disbelief and anger at the picture showing, I guess, the big extended family.
Bruh.
Where the fuck is my man Dromark?
He's
He's
right
there.
in the
In the picture.
front. He's right.
Yeah,
in the
bro,
front.
there.
he's
He's
fucking.
on the
he's-
Right,
no,
looking
I
like a
think-
proud
Yeah,
granddad.
he's there.
I think
he's
you're
not-
No.
misunderstanding my question.
He's beheaded on the goddamn Cloud Keep is where he's at.
Right, like what the hell happened to him? You mean to tell me you kept Poppy around all this
They
time?
they ate that man.
Well,
Oh,
the thing
yeah,
with
I
Poppy,
agree.
Yeah.
the thing with
You
Poppy
kept
is
Poppy
I'm,
around
I'm
all
pretty,
this time, but Dromark had to go bye-bye, man. Fuck.
I'm pretty sure Poppy's powering like the
Didn't see
entire
she-
fucking
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Poppy
right.
is definitely powering the Cloud Keep.
And
just,
Dromark probably just stayed back home with everyone.
Yeah,
Because when the
so-
world's
Looking
I-
after the kids.
I was gonna say I have to go now, but like my final thoughts quickly, I just want to say like I thought so far like I think it is my favorite story in the series. I think maybe I still slightly like two more, but I think overall story wise, character wise, is my favorite. Gameplay wise, it's also my favorite. But yeah, I did not like the few distinctions between areas and lack of music and stuff. But I will say that ending really like fucked me up, really ruined my day. Just like emotionally, like when they start running towards each other, I was like, it's over, man. I just know today's just not gonna be a good day. But yeah, overall fantastic. And yeah, so I'll see you guys.
Take care, Fidel.
Later, man.
On the
Yes.
topic of scenes destroying us, if I may, Chapter 5, man, is, in my opinion, one of the best chapters in any Xenoblade game ever, among all of them. I don't think I have sobbed that much in quick succession playing any video game ever in my life. If you have not already seen my live reaction to Chapter 5, you can go ahead and watch it. Zeph, I know you watched it. Viram, I know you watched it. I think Coast might have watched it already too. I was a sobbing mess from the moment they get to the prison to that final moment of the ending where you think N is going to behead Noah. Like that.
what when the
entire
party's
sequence.
going through their fucking lean on me moment.
So
Yeah.
good. So
And it's like-
Roger,
it's so
Roger. What's
powerful,
funny?
too.
What's actually funny is I went back. I watched your clip. You're literally dying. You're sobbing. Like you're like losing
I'm a
it.
mess, bro.
I go back and watch mine. I'm just disgusted. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
why were you
I was.
disgusted then? I'm shocked.
Here's how I viewed it. Okay, I felt that whole thing was way too rushed, and I didn't
Yeah.
get a chance to soak it in and actually, like, realize what was happening. It was way too fast for me. Like even when Mio, when M is in jail with all the others and
And
shit.
she says, "You're my
I
Noah,"
still
and
I
stuff.
like
Oh,
I
my
didn't
God.
I wasn't aware of what was going on because there was so much happening. It was way too fast. I wasn't like keeping track of shit. So when
When
that
you're done,
change
I'll tell you.
happened, when that change happened, and then the reveal in chapter 6, and you get that whole dump, it's like first of all, it was very vague with what happened. And I was like, okay, that twist is fine, but then to go into chapter 6 and then just lay out everything without even letting me soak it in after it just happened is like something I didn't sit right with. It didn't feel like it was that big of an aha moment.
So can I say something to that real fast? Because like when I did it, like I didn't get super emotional, but I was like trying to think through everything that's happening. So like when the twist happened, I immediately thought back. Cause something didn't stick right with me. When Mio in the cell said "my Noah," it's like, wait a minute, that sounds like very possessive.
Yeah, I was like very.
And it seemed like that doesn't
about that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like something Mio would say. But then after you realize it's M and not Mio, that meant so much more now because you realize what she's saying. She's literally referring to N and not Noah.
What were you gonna say, Viram? And then Zeph.
Yeah, no, a friend of mine actually. So I imagine most people, when they got to the end of chapter 5, they went straight into chapter 6 because with the way that chapter ended, it's like it's difficult to not want to continue.
Yeah, right.
It's such an intense ending for that chapter. A friend of mine actually did he was streaming the game. He stopped his stream at the end of chapter 5 and then did like an hour-long retrospective just so that he could let everything kind of sink in, get back into the mood. And I feel like that was a good way to do it in retrospect, just so that you're kind of going into that chapter 6 with a bit more of a fresh mentality, ready to actually think about what's going on there. Because, yeah, as you said, Coach, they really pile on a lot at the end of chapter 5 / the start of chapter 6 on you, and it can be overwhelming. But I think, for me, just the emotional gravitas of everything that was happening...
That's the thing. Like, I'm not discrediting that scene because it was still very well done. Like, I was like, very drawn into that scene. I just feel like after I put down the controller, playing that when all is said and done, like once that beginning of chapter 6 dies down and you actually, you're in that area and you can stop watching cutscenes, it was just like, man, what happened? I'm still not satisfied with it.
I think going into it, and maybe it's because I'm very stupid. While I was watching the lead up to the finale of chapter 5, you get that one shot of the city where something is happening in front of. Is it Monica that's standing there with Gondor?
Oh, right,
and
right.
You see that little sparkle in front of them, and then the camera cuts away. When I saw that, I didn't think it was M. I didn't think it was anybody that was going to be at the Hope's Rest area. I thought it was actually Yoren, but when you see everybody gearing up, it's like my brain thought, okay, something is going to happen to prevent this from going through. I had already mentally prepared because A, it's chapter 5. B, I don't think they're going to cut me down to a 5-player party or 5-member party right away, especially after introducing so many heroes.
Yeah.
There was a thought in my head we're gonna get Ethel back, but no, that didn't happen.
You're saying that in my head. I don't even know if I vocalized this when I was playing it. I actually thought they were gonna pull an Aerith. That's what I thought they were gonna do. I thought they're no, actually she is dead from this point forward in the game. And then moving forward, like you said, you're going to get Ethel as your 6th. You're going to get somebody else or Nia because they were.
I thought it was
they said they were going to go get Nia. Oh, you thought it was just
I thought we were gonna yeah. My first thought was Ethel, and I was like, no, she's a hero. There's got to be something different. They could give us M, right?
Yeah.
And from the obvious looking at it, sure. I'm looking at we're seeing that N is just Noah but different. So
the way I viewed it was that cutscene prior when you're escaping the prison, and then you meet MNN. And there's that scene where M sheds a tear. I thought of that as, she feels remorse. She feels for us, right? But in retrospect, it's not. But
it's got different context.
Yeah. So that's how I viewed it as. It's okay, she's gonna join us. Ends up it's not. But
Yeah, from that
So,
scene, I thought the
because-
Flash was M for sure. But I thought like they did with Lance and Senna that they were just something was gonna happen and they're gonna save her. Like they're not gonna kill her. So when she actually died at the start of chapter 6, I'm sitting there for a while in my head thinking about, well, how do I build my team now? Like, because
so at that
seriously
moment,
gone.
right? Like I'm trying to compartmentalize all the information the game has given me, and even if there was a point where my brain thought like, even if we do save her, her clock's run out. There is no saving Mio. So like I thought that we were gonna get M. Finding out that twist of the swap is like that was a pretty cool thing, and it like Kos mentioned a moment ago, that like context of the teardrop, like that made sense to me in that moment.
Time out. Hold on. We got to stop the recording real quick. Time out.
In that moment, I was like, well, clearly Mio is like her book ends here, right? Her journal gets closed here. There is no more fun little between chapter Mio journals. She has to die, and you know that's just what it is. And the twist
even
was
at
cool.
The start, I want to say, because you reminded me, the start of chapter 6 doesn't have her, like the book isn't even there.
It doesn't.
They just skip that
it's
entirely.
flu.
Yep. Which I thought was a pretty a nice little gesture, but I think like when my brain realized that Mio is slated to die here, I started looking at other things. And chapter 5, while it's a very emotional point for everybody, I kind of mark it for me as the point where I almost switched sides and started cheering for N.
What?
Because that moment where he's standing over Noah and he drops the flute and says, "She's your Mio, right? See her off. Do your job." I was like, that is hard.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That shit was clean.
That was clean.
That
And
scene
then 10 minutes
established.
later, he's crying like a bitch on stage, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, that scene. I feel like that gave me the impression where I was like, damn, N should have been the main villain.
Yes.
And not
yes.
Z.
Perfect segue. Yes.
Absolutely.
Wait.
110% yes.
Before we segue into this, there's one other thing that I want to
Virum
say.
did have one thing.
And it's the fact that throughout this game, they do a lot in terms of subverting expectations in moments both big and small. Because throughout a lot of this game, particularly in scenes in like chapters 2 and 3, the way we're thinking about it is that we're racing against the clock, because as you mentioned before, Mio was very much on a limited timer. At the start of the game, she only had 3 months left.
Yeah.
And so for us to then spend that final month just in prison and then to watch her die was just like, what kind of direction is this? Like, where do we go from here? And they do this throughout a lot of the game, where they kind of lead you a little bit into a direction and then kind of twist you elsewhere. And I think that's one of the things I really enjoyed about the story as a whole.
Complete agreement. Now, about why N should be the main villain and not Z.
Hold on. Wait. I didn't get to say shit.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't really give a fuck about the story, to be honest. I just wanted to say, so I was watching my friend play, and you know how you have to interact with the jail cell door 3 times for some fucking reason?
Someone skipped that, didn't they?
So the 3rd time she skipped it because she was like, okay, I guess this isn't what I'm supposed to do. But if you skip that, you miss for some reason, if you skip that specific thing, you miss the entire thing where Noah's in purgatory, and it just immediately cuts to Mio dying.
Oh.
Wait,
Yeah, you
it's
missed
the
a lot.
entire homecoming scene to just her dying?
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's really
All
bad.
that time in
That's
prison.
It's really
wild.
bad.
That's fucked up.
That is messed up. All right.
But villain talk specifically.
Let's go.
N, I think, would have made a fantastic final villain. I think that with how they set Z up, there wasn't really much room for, if you wanted N to be the main villain, he can't have a redemption phase. There has to be some sort of power that he acquires himself, can't be given to him. And I wish that was the direction the game would have taken, because while I inevitably do end up walking away saying, yeah, Z is an all right guy, as an all right villain, yeah, you guys are just playing a game. You guys are just keeping I'm entertained. This is fun. This is fun for me. I like that, but in the same regard, when you're leaning into emotion very heavily with your main characters of Mio and Noah, I feel that if you have a main villain whose main emotion is apathy, I can't really get behind hating them too much, because why does he care that I hate him? Whereas if you have N, it's like you do have a little bit more depth to it with Mio and M, especially at the end of chapter 5. And I think if the game would have pivoted him into being the main villain starting at that point, and he like kills Z or something, like I'm not gonna try to write an alternate end for the game. That's not my job. I don't get paid to do that. I'm not very good at it. But I think that whatever the decision would have been from
could have
that
definitely
point,
done some anime bullshit where he absorbs him or something.
Right, exactly. I think there's definitely a way where you pivot Noah like having to fight N as the final villain as opposed to Z.
Hearing absorbing the final villain of the Xenoblade game gives me PTSD.
I felt like the game took way too long to do something with him, because every chapter ended with him in the theater saying one or two lines that were like so extremely vague, and it took like chapter 6 or chapter 7 to actually provide some background to what the flame clocks are, what his like motives are, and all of that. It was super vague until that point, where with N, it was clear from, I think it was chapter 3, chapter 2, you know, what his goals are. He had the potential for it. And with Z, he felt empty. He felt
exactly
like,
no. That's exactly it, right? Is that in a game that the thing that we all agree on is like the emotional core of the cast in this one is super strong, and so when you don't have a villain that matches that, and not only like matches it, doesn't even come close. Like you described earlier, Chris, he's apathetic, right? And when you're having to describe this villain, that is the villain at the end of the game, that is the culmination of one of the best JRPG trilogies of all time, that has a Z in his name, that could have very easily been some weird like Zanza. It could have been like, they could have even gone farther back and done like the Zohar from the Xenogears games. Like, for it to just be Z.
Well, actually, hold on. I'm gonna stop you there. Did you see?
Real quick.
Did you?
I have seen the image that you're talking about. For his dialogue at the end of the game to literally be, I hate this, 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 over and over again. For that entire final boss sequence to be an unskippable 30-minute cutscene if you lose, that you have to go through again to get back.
I think Virum did lose, actually.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I didn't
to
lose.
go through.
No, I saw someone lose. They were playing on hard mode.
It was Rogers.
It was so painful. I'm 8 hours into this stream. You cannot skip that entire sequence again. There's no checkpoint. You have to do the entire thing again. And then the entire sequence at the end of that is like 6 different phases where you have to fight him again before Melia and Nia even come in again. There is absolutely no justifying the.
That's what I mean. There's like a lack of polish in some areas.
It is dog shit, unforgivable. No reason there should not be a.
That's some like that's actually like
Origin prior to
bro.
That, which is
that's
one of the
legitimately
longest, most dragged out areas in any ending Xenoblade ever. You compare the Origin to the World Tree or to the prison, I'm not even willing to hear it, bro.
Hey, like, Origin music kind of slapped though.
Like, also, I want to say
that final fight with Z and Z as a character is unforgivable and is a big reason why I feel like I felt so underwhelmed by the end of the game. Go ahead, Vera.
Here's the really funny thing. And McDareth and I are on the exact same page here. We love that boss. That whole final sequence to me was fucking incredible. I loved every moment of it.
Did you win the first time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Both of us.
I won the first time, but like when I had to like unshackle every party member, my fucking eyes were starting to roll back into the back of my skull.
Right.
You know what it reminded me a lot of?
I
I played Chrono Trigger 2 years ago. Obviously, a lot of you guys have played Chrono Trigger as well.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of the final boss sequence of that game. It's very, very long, very, very exhausting. Obviously, that game doesn't really have the cutscenes. And if you fail, you go back to the beginning.
Sure.
It really, I think, helps emphasize the stakes of the battle. I remember when I was playing that battle for the first time in my playthrough, I went in pretty well prepared. But there were a lot of close calls where I knew that if I lost, I was just going to feel so exhausted. And so I completely understand where you're coming from by the end of the fight. But for me, I was just so immersed in the overall storytelling through the gameplay of the fight. Because I love the shit where at the start they make you feel really weak, like you have no chance against him. And gradually, you're breaking through the shackles. You get to see the cutscenes and the heroes gradually come in. It's like it feels like a culmination of the journey of the game so far, and that's precisely what I loved about it. It was long and exhausting, but all of that just came together really, really in a really poignant way.
The heroes coming into me was something I wanted so bad because I kept talking about because I love Mass Effect 3 has an awful ending, but I love Mass Effect, and the Mass Effect 2 suicide missions is one of the best endings in any video game ever. So, like, the fact that all this time I've been getting all these heroes, and then in the final fight, they all come in at the moment where we're turning the tide, and then Nia and Melia also come in. And when I had, okay, Nia got spoiled for me in, Chapter 5 that she was going to be a hero, because someone in my chat just said it, sorry, this is a spoiler. It's like, okay, whatever, I guess. But I didn't expect her to pop up there.
Shadows at the end of the Sonic movie, too.
Wait.
A
little more. But I 100% agree with you that because I heard it from you because I didn't we talked about it in New York for a little bit. You just told me if you die you start over. So I heard it from you. I knew okay, I can't mess around with this. Right. So the second the Blaze phase started, I immediately switched to a healer, started healing people up. Went to the second phase, he did a ton of AoE damage. Went to a healer, kept people up, fought back that way, and used trade attacks to make sure I could get through it. But I feel definitely the boss fight would have been better. The second you got to Z Infinite, there should have been a checkpoint. That would have made so much more sense.
Yeah,
but
that and those cutscenes definitely should have been skippable.
After the first time, yes,
the cutscenes would have been it. Had they allowed me to skip through the cutscenes, I'd be happy to go through the gameplay again. That's fine. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think both of you having beaten it your first try, or in McDare's case being warned about it, I think is also good. I think you won't have the same issue. But for me, who went in blind, lost the first time, had to do it a second time. That is where my pain comes from, for sure.
I beat it my first time through as well. And my takeaway from it, and the issue why I do not agree with the Lavos fight comparison from Chrono Trigger is that at the beginning of the Lavos fight, you are not restricted in your mechanics to do damage 1000%. You look at the initial start of the Z fight, and I was like, damn, I'm not doing any damage. Exactly. And then I got the bar down a little bit, and somebody in my chat said, oh, by the way, don't lose here. And I was like, oh, shit. If I lose here, I got to do this entire 20-minute fight over again. And by the time I reached minute 40, I was like, can I turn the difficulty down so I can do damage and progress this fight?
Yeah, because in terms of empowering the player, it was different, but it was more just in terms of length.
Right, the length is different entirely, right? Yeah. Where you're looking at this long fight that if you lose, you start over and have to do it again. That is 100%. I'm just saying that I don't think that the comparison is super apt because there's not a moment of my shit isn't working in Chrono Trigger.
Yeah,
the final boss, final boss for me, is just in its entirety. It didn't feel like a final boss. The boss himself as a character did not feel like a final boss. The fight mechanics did not really do enough for me. It felt bland to me the entire fight.
I really didn't like
the music. The boss music does not feel like boss music.
The entire end game, I've made it very clear that I do not I don't like Xenoblade 3's end game even remotely. And yeah, when that motherfucker turned into Andros, I was pretty much done.
I'm glad we had the exact same thought on it. Because I called him Andros too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to hear I'm not alone with the final fight thing though, because my chat, man, they were like, no, it's so good, you should understand it. But I was like, for me, I think had Z been a better villain, or the cutscene's been skippable for the replay, either of those things would have given me a very different response to that final fight. But both of
Z simply just was not, he was just not involved enough at all.
I think what did it for me as a whole as to why I didn't like that ending. Especially because, again, bringing this back to something positive, the core story in this one, I think, is really good and stands on its own. Right? Like, you don't need the Xenoblade 1, Xenoblade 2 references,
that's what their goal was.
Right. But because that's what their goal was, I think it was a grave mistake to market this as the culmination of 1 and 2, because that is not what this is. It is its own
but it is.
story.
What?
No,
it is, though. Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
I'm gonna be.
No, it's not.
You have to be honest with yourself on this.
It's not.
You can not play Xenoblade 1 or 2 and get through 3.
Yes, but if I played 1 and 2, there's so much stuff in 3 that I get more enjoyment out of it.
You get more enjoyment out of it.
There's moments of more enjoyment, but like Chris was saying, like,
it doesn't
you could completely not play 1 or 2 and adore 3.
Yes, that's
not the culmination. Like, if we're talking,
but
about
to me that doesn't. Okay, but to me that doesn't mean that it's not a culmination. They literally took so many story beats they worked through 1 and 2, not so many, right? But very important story beats in 1 and 2, and played them forward.
I don't know. I feel like the ending of 2 felt more like a culmination of the end of the fucking series with everything that happened and like showing Klaus and everything.
Is that 2 has that moment that really connects to the story of 1. And obviously this one connects to the story of both of them, but it's in this weird, like, avant-garde way. The stuff
it feels convoluted.
The fog beasts and shit, like, that were in the future connected thing that are now here, that was supposed to be like, oh, those are actually the siren bells of annihilation leading to this event with the 2 universes. It's like, all right, bro, okay, fine. Like, so you're not going to explain what this fog is. You're not going to say, like, exactly what Z is. Z is just everyone's, like, fears and anxiety culminating into this thing. Like, bro.
I don't know if I'm being unfair, but, like, I feel like leaving out multiple major story beats for the sake of DLC is bullshit.
I also agree, because having that scene at the ending with Rex and you see the rest of the party from 2, and it's like an Easter egg at the end, and you've got
because there's a lot of stuff.
I mean, the whole thing with the founders, when you're looking at the statues, it's very clear one of them is either Shulk inspired by Dunban,
hinted to be
or
Dunban,
potentially Dunban, right? There's one that could potentially have been a descendant of, like, Rex. And so there's stuff in there that when you dive into, you're like, man, this would have really, as somebody who was looking forward to stuff with 1
like,
and 2,
I think not explaining
part of the core story.
I think not explaining the sort of origin in base game is fucking stupid.
I agree.
But I think overall, the main takeaway that I have from this game, even if there's like plights that I have based on, you know, characters not feeling as in depth as certain characters in previous installments, story points, especially towards the end, feeling a little bit sloppily constructed, I will say it makes up for it 1,000,000% for me with gameplay.
Oh, it's
the gameplay in this one's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's the best one gameplay wise.
Yeah, especially combat wise. I think the combat's
the
really
only
nice
complaint
mix.
I have is that it's like actually just too easy.
I'm never going to complain about ease in a sense where, like, if certain things, especially like how we were just talking about the final boss fight, like if you lose, do not pass go, do not collect $200.
Well, I think it's funny because to me,
well, I mean, like the shit where the shit where you like. There's just too much like ways to get tons of experience. Like I walk into a new area and get 6,000 experience. Like leave me alone, bro.
I was going to say that's part of the issue with this game specifically is when you're talking about your hero classes, you not being able to learn one if you're a certain level higher than enemies that you're fighting makes it a little bit of an issue when you're talking about like I want to try to use this new class that you gave me and use this new hero, but I can't level the class up because
apparently
every
the DLC
time,
fixed this.
Not only the DLC, but beating the game because you can lower your levels at camps.
Right.
Yeah.
So I really would love to know why that like was not a thought to include.
I heard
in the base game from jump.
I heard in the latest update what they did was you can use Nopon coins to unlock classes for any character, but you can't level them up.
Yeah.
You have to like level them up traditionally.
You can level them up with Nopon coins originally.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay then.
So you just couldn't unlock them.
The thing that I find especially strange is the fact that in
Oh no, it's challenge mode twice. My bad.
in Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition, you could level characters down in that game, but for some reason that wasn't brought into this game, where there are, as you mentioned, there's so many ways to get experience, even if you're not trying to like I spent a lot of that game not really using my bonus experience because you recommended it at one point, Zeph, but even then I was over leveled for the majority of the game up until I reached Origin, where it leveled out perfectly.
For me, because I was 10 levels higher than everything, main story, just because I was like, anytime I got to enough, oh, this is zone I forgot I couldn't do, I just go back and clear the whole thing. So like, yeah, I got super over leveled, but like, to me, I didn't mind it being easy because it felt rewarding to me because I knew I'm shit stomping all this stuff because I spent time min-maxing the shit out of my parties. When I went into a fight, I was confident as long as you don't have some stupid AoE move that's going to just delete my whole team, you're going to die. So like, it felt the ease of it on the harder difficulty at least felt rewarding. Like I was gonna say, the final boss, I feel like on normal is the first time you're actually checked, where it's like
agreed
that whole last area. If you went in when the quest is level 55, it starts at like 60 and goes to 75 on the final boss. So if you don't have a team that's strong enough to deal tons of AoE damage to get to him, and the ease that whole last area is gonna be rough. That's why I understood for Raja. Like I was going through, it's like, yeah, I can see why Raja didn't like this.
Especially because that final area, there's so many unique monsters that are in there too that like would be fun. But by that point in the game, like I'm excited to get to the end. I want to experience this cool area. And when you're like forced into raging these fights and having to go through like and fight the same type of like robot monster over and over and over again in Origin, and then go from that directly into the final boss, like it is a slog. I think
that was so ass, bro. When all the robots came out.
Yeah, my advice to players is like, if you are going through that final area, just take your time with it. Don't like, once you've entered it, maybe take like a day or two to play through it. Don't rush to the ending just because you want to see the ending, because you will get frustrated. Yeah. Trust me.
My advice, if you can, go get Ethel, slap on Lucky 7.
Oh yes, that too. Yeah, Ethel and Lucky 7 make things way easier. Yes. Any last minute thoughts?
Because we should talk about the ending, like the ending after the credits. We should talk about that.
Let's hear it. Go ahead.
So my theory, well, it's kind of confirmed. So basically, like, it's almost like a Sonic 06 thing where it happened, but it didn't happen. But actually, it happened because Noah obviously remembers. So like the end cuts right back to the point where the two worlds collide and Noah was a child.
Yeah.
So everyone's souls.
Scene of the game. Yep.
Yeah. So everyone's souls that were still, I almost said the life hold. Everyone's souls that were still in Origin went right back to where they were. So Origin just caught it right before the two worlds collide, and it continues right from there. So they're all gonna grow up again. Well, again, they're gonna grow up and have their normal lives ahead of them. But then the flute plays, and it's Mio's tune, and Noah hears it and walks towards it. So yeah, hinting that there's still some connection between them, despite the distance now.
So, I'm glad you bring that up. Very glad you bring that up. Because I think the DLC, I was talking about this in my chat a lot, and I was saying when I got to the the founder statues at first, I was like, oh, this is going to be the DLC, right? The DLC is going to be a prequel that has the stuff with the founders. And now, I think that's kind of true, but also it's like a sequel at the same time, right? Because I think you are going to play as the founders, but you're going to have like young Neo and, I said Neo, young Noah.
I did that so much.
And young Mio, yep, right? And have them grow up, and you still have that connection, almost like the kids in Torna, right? Well, like when you're playing with Torna and you've got the kids there. I think it's going to be kind of a similar thing where you've got the founders, but you've also got like these children that are there with the memories of this other world, and them having to bring and unite these universes together in a way that doesn't ruin everything.
I actually think of the founders instead of Neo. I did it again. Neo and Noah. I think you're gonna get their son, because they showed their son and he was left with Lucky Sevens. But then one of the founders, they tell you that that guy looks a lot like Noah.
Yeah, yeah.
The Van Damme founder that goes missing.
Yeah.
So I think like that's going to be their son who had Lucky Sevens at the time. But I also feel like another way they could do this is they could do like still prequel, but do like year 0 of like when it first happened, have all the Xenoblade 1 and 2 characters.
That's what I really want that at this point. I really, really, really want that. I think if there's a way to balance that with the continuation of the story, right, and like what actually
I think they can,
because ending, I think they can too. Agreed.
Because what they can do is
that would make everybody happy. That would make the people who wanted more of 1 and 2 stuff happy, and the people who like the core story of the standalone happy as well.
Here's what I think with regards to that. So obviously, when marketing this game, they were like, "Oh yeah, the world of Xenoblade 3 is set like hundreds of years in the future or whatever. It's a distant future." But that is within the confines of Ionios, which was essentially trapped in its time loop.
Right.
That is over the course of thousands of years. But of course, the world outside, Bionis and Ulrest, they were stopped in time. So the events of the start, essentially the start and the end of Xenoblade 3, I think aren't too far ahead of the events of 1 and 2.
I agree.
Maybe like a few decades or something.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the cast from 1 and 2 are probably still alive in adult forms. It would also explain why, characters like Melia was in like cryosleep, so that doesn't really count. But like, it would also explain stuff like Tora being partially responsible for developing the Aura side of Origin based on that one screenshot. It would explain like obviously the picture at the end with Rex and company. Like if Nia, because Nia obviously had been stuck in Ionios for hundreds of years. Of course she's gonna miss them because that time for her is still genuinely passing. But on the world of Bionis and Ulrest, we could still see like an adult Rex or like an adult Shulk, stuff like that. So that's where I think it's going to lead into with the DLC.
I hope so, man. I really do.
I was going to say like
the descriptions on the founder statue give like very good hints and descriptions of who they are.
Well, like I said, the Dunban one you brought up earlier, right? Like,
yeah.
I think though that's kind of meant to throw you off because I think the Dunban one is actually Shulk. Because the way they describe it, it's like this person had an older brother figure, and then you already know, obviously, Dunban only has the one arm from the first Xenoblade, but then it's like you see this character that kind of looks like Shulk, but has a Dunban description with like what appears to be a metal arm. So it might just be like there's a parallel there with him.
Yeah, one arm and inside his red sword as well.
There's the one that looks like Zeke, and the description is like he took on the physical appearance of his mentor.
Yep.
And I believe that's Rex.
Yep.
And then the description is that he wields 2 swords, and I believe he's just wielding both Aegis swords.
Pyra and Mithra.
I actually didn't catch that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And then there's other ones where there's one that's like Faye. I'm forgetting the other 3. I think one is supposed to be like the child of Noah and Mio or something like that.
Yeah, that's the Van Damme one.
Right.
Yeah. But like people have said, there's a reason why the DLC has, the Monado, the Aegis, and the Sword of Origin.
So then I'm going to ask, do you think this is going to be a Torna situation in which they release this as a standalone game?
Yep. Because they did the same thing with the expansion pass. They had the expansion pass and then they had Torna. So.
But if you remember, there was a lot of stuff that got added to the expansion pass in 2 afterwards that was free DLC, like on top of what they had already promised. So we could end up getting even more.
That all happened in between Xenoblade 2's release and Torna. Because that was like a good 9-month gap.
I think it was like a year and a couple months.
And we're going to get this at the end of next year, right?
By the end of next year, they said, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I still think you're capping with the culmination thing, but I don't think we have enough time for me
to have an old... I mean, we'll see. When we get the DLC and they actually do the culmination of all of it, then we'll talk. But for now, the base game, I don't think so. Well, that's okay. Any other last-minute thoughts before we wrap this baby up? This was a solid hour and a half... Xenoblade.
I know how we can end it.
Yeah,
I know how we can end it.
Yeah.
Now that we've all played, I'm assuming we've all played like the mainline Xenoblades. Which one would you now view as your favorite?
Let's do it. Discord order. Start with McDareth.
Xenoblade 3, hands down. Like I'm normally pretty recency biased, But like Xenoblade 1 will also have a special place in my heart, and I like 2 more than 1. But like the combat in 1 going back is super dated, so it's really hard for me to go back and play that. Even 2 comparatively. But in 3, it's like I get the job system I absolutely love in RPGs. It's a game that lets me just customize my party to the umpteenth level and do as like tons of stuff I want to do. I love the story. Like, honestly, I know you don't like that final boss, but I feel like that was the best Xenoblade boss they've ever done because it actually felt like a spectacle. My issue with most bosses in Xenoblade is it feels like I'm playing the regular game. And then here's this guy that has a bunch, he's just a damage sponge, but it's the regular game. This one actually felt like I was battling against something. Yes, it's kind of tedious. If you lose, yeah, that probably just ruins the whole thing. But I felt like, yeah, like this. To me, this game is almost a masterpiece. I feel like this game is amazing.
Coast?
I feel like I've been flip-flopping between 2 lately just because, you know, I'm reflecting on the games, especially after beating 3. I think right now, though, I have to say Xenoblade 3 over Xenoblade 2 just by a slight margin, just because looking back at Xenoblade 2 and attempting to play it again, I feel like it's not going to age as well as Xenoblade 3 will, and it needs a lot of quality of life upgrades to that game in order for me to experience the same joy I had before playing Xenoblade 3. Because I think there were just a lot of aspects in Xenoblade 3 that trump 2, and I as much as I would like to say Xenoblade 2, with as much as I love those characters and all of that, it's objectively 3 I think is just a better game, so I'll say Xenoblade 3.
Chris?
All right. Now, I'm going to say this. I know that a lot of you adore Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Say 2, bro. Say 2.
That game is dog shit to play if you have not played a Xenoblade game in either a long time or before. I think the gameplay is not refined in a way that anybody can pick it up and have fun, and that was my experience with it. If I have to watch a dissertation on how to play the game from a YouTuber that I normally would not have looked up beforehand, then the game does not feel good. I think far and away, 3 being as streamlined, simplistic, and actually giving you meaningful tutorials makes that experience so much better. The things that I like more in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, like with some story aspects and characters, get vastly overshadowed by the fact that I actually want to explore the world. I am not hard stuck because of field skills. There is no gotcha for me to try to get blades with certain blade abilities to get those field skills. I don't have to try to change up my party at any given moment because I'm getting blade shackled in the middle of a combat scenario. I think that the ease of certain combats in 3, yeah, it is a little bit irritating when you walk into a boss fight and you know the second you press the I do damage with this button and the fight ends, it's not as fulfilling sometimes. But I think the lows that I experienced with 3 are vastly overstated by the highs of the overall gameplay and combat of 3. So 3 head and shoulders above the other games. I would say it's probably 3-1-2 for me.
Right on.
It was interesting. It was interesting, really quick, to say like that you brought up like if Xenoblade 2 is your first game, you're not gonna like it at all or something like that. I forgot what you said exactly, but Xenoblade 2 was my first game, and I absolutely adored that shit.
I was saying, so if you haven't played 1 and you don't have that insight on how the game is supposed to work.
Yeah, I like Xenoblade 2, I went in completely blind. I knew no single thing about Xenoblade. I had no idea what it was.
Some people will. I just think that if you put like first time players in front of Xenoblade 3 and Xenoblade 2, I think that you can say that it's bias. I am willing to admit that more people will walk away saying Xenoblade 3 is the better game.
Yeah. I've said this earlier. I'm standing by at 1, 2, 3. Man, I think 1 is still, especially Definitive Edition. I think with the changes that they made to the game, I think if you go back and you're comparing like the base game Xenoblade 1 to 3 and 2, then it's no question 3 and 2 are better. But Definitive Edition as a whole, the changes made to the game, the graphical updates, the music, future connected, all that stuff connected to it. I think the core game of Definitive Edition is to me like peak Xenoblade, and it's like not even close, to be honest. But I will say, like, second to me is Torna. I think no one's really going to bring up Torna as like the absolute favorite. At least I don't think so. Knowing like Viram and Zeph's taste. But I think Torna is like the best place to start, actually, if you are a Xenoblade newbie. I think it is a core 25-hour adventure that can stand alone, is fun, sort of gets you into the combat mechanics, sort of what to expect, the gameplay loop of Xenoblade games, and I think it's a really solid 25-hour game. But for me, Definitive Edition, yeah, Xenoblade 1.
Yeah, I would agree with you with Torna if it didn't do the side quest stuff it did. Because I
agree on that end. I also stand by what I said earlier too. I think the side mission, side quest stuff in 3 is the best from any of the games by far. And personally, I think the characters in 2 are still my favorite. But as a game overall, I think that's the reason why 1 is on top still for me.
So like when you bring up the side quest stuff real fast, like to me, I am a person that I hate affinity. In most of the Xenoblade games, I don't touch it. I max affinity with every single colony except the 2 cities in this before I did the final boss. Like, I just like the game that much.
Viram, what's your choice?
Yeah.
Oh no, go ahead. You can finish your thought.
No. That was it.
Oh, okay.
So for me, it's kind of tough. I'm definitely similar to Coast. I'm kind of on the fence between 2 and 3, leaning towards 3, if just because it's a much more consistent, streamlined experience. You know, for me, the highs of 2 are my favorite in the series, but there's a lot of low points, and it really just comes down to how one weighs those low points versus the highs. I actually agree with a lot of the problems that you stated, Chris. They made a lot of sense to me, and it's actually why it's one of the reasons why I personally don't like super readily recommend Xenoblade 2, and it's why I understand why people drop the game after like 5 to 10 hours, because the start is irritating. It doesn't teach you the game well, stuff like that. But coming as someone who played Xenoblade 2 for hundreds of hours, did multiple playthroughs, that game has kind of become like a comfort game for me in a very special way. So even though I think 3 is the more well-rounded experience, and there's so much I love about 3, and all 3 games, to be honest, are incredibly special to me.
Yeah, they're all great.
I think 2 probably just about edges it out.
Right on. Zeph, you're last.
2.
All right, there you go. Short, sweet, and to the point. Well, guys, that is going to conclude our Xenoblade Chronicles 3 spoiler talk. Thank you all for joining me. If you enjoyed this spoiler discussion, let us know in the comments down below. Tell us if you want to do more of these. I think we are kind of planning to do more in the future, depending on what games the majority of the cast ends up playing. I think Tito said he wanted to do one for God of War, but I don't know how many of us are actually going to be playing God of War.
I think realistically, the next one we do for a spoiler cast would be
Scarlet and Violet, probably.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
I thought Sonic would probably get it.
Sonic wouldn't be.
Sonic's
not like. It's not like. I feel like you
it
could
wouldn't be
fit
a
in
spoiler cast, but I think it would be a good discussion table to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, but I feel like you could also fit, unless Sonic Frontiers is just huge, but I feel like you could fit it in to the show, but we'll see.
We'll see. Either way, thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk to you all on the next one. Bye-bye.